welcome back to Enlighten Up for episode 47, The Event, DNA Activation Truth Codes, 40 Days in a Van with Jesus, and 0 Point Energy Healing. We welcome Linda Good McGillis to the show today, who has her finger on the pulse when it comes to all things related to the event, the ascension process, and the energy of our awakening. This episode is so chock full of information and wisdom. In fact, it might be one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. You are going to want to listen to this episode multiple times just to absorb the information in here, because there is just a wealth of wisdom that Linda shares with us. I can't even go into all of the details here, but we're going to talk about twin flame distortion. We're going to talk about Uranus moving into Taurus and how that is a new 7-year cycle of sudden change that is going to affect the collective ascension and what that means for everyone. We're going to talk about the event and if it's a singular event or if it's coming in waves. Linda talks to us about how we're all time travelers, whether we remember it or not, and how we have come back to recreate the time where we annihilated ourselves. We're going to get into the divine truth codes of the Holy Mother and the Holy Father and how that activates our DNA. And she's going to share with us her very traumatic spiritual awakening that led her to spending 40 days in a van with angels and Jesus, and how that changed everything for her. So let's just jump right into the episode and find out all of the wisdom that Linda has to share with us today. Welcome back to Enlighten Up, everyone. I am Nicole Frolick, one of your co-hosts, and I am joined today by Lisa and Brian, my other two co-hosts. Michael is not with us today, but we have a very fun show for you planned today. We're going to be talking to someone who had a very intense and deep spiritual awakening in 2013, and she's going to share with us her experience and how that was actually a very it was a disruptive experience and not an easy transition for her, because she was quite a skeptic leading up to this point. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Linda to the show, who describes herself as an incarnated and embodied omnipresent galactic commander, ancient elder, guardian gatekeeper, and wisdom weaver. Linda, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am good. How are you, Nicole?
I'm good. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's let the audience know a little bit about you and how your spirit, like your deep spiritual awakening, came to be. Because you've mentioned to me before that you slowly started awakening from 1996, but you had a very intense awakening in 2013. What prompted the spiritual awakening for you? The really intense one.
Wait. Time out. You can't give that introduction and not give me a chance to say Galactic Commander. So, do you have a fleet of warships stationed outside of the troposphere?
Can I answer with a question? What makes you think that galactic automatically means warships?
I don't know. All the movies I've watched.
No, I am commander of a starship known as the Golden Rose. There's 900,000 sentient beings that reside on that ship.
Oh, okay.
Well, how are they doing without their commander on the ship?
Well, the commander is on the ship. And you're sitting on it.
Never heard a growl before. Wow.
I like that grr. I like it when you grr at me, Brian.
I'm at a loss for words.
Not quite sure how to navigate this one, are you, Brian?
Nope. This is a first for me.
Well, every planet is a ship, is a starship.
Okay.
And even though it appears to the human aspect of us that all these planets are outside of us, they're really inside us, if you will. And Earth in and of itself is a ship. Some people call her Gaia, and but she in and of herself is a starship.
I can understand that.
And you can liken all of us to, you've seen all these shuttles going to the moon, and you see them walking on the moon, and they have their spacesuits on, and they have that cord that connects them to the ship, the shuttle, right?
Right.
Well, liken that to us.
Okay.
You know, your body that's named Brian, it's labeled Brian, is a spacesuit, and your consciousness, awakened or not, has a silver umbilical cord that's attached to the consciousness of the ship.
Okay.
Some people call that ship mother.
Okay, I can understand that. So, what your ship is part of Earth?
Our ship is Earth.
But you said you were the commander of one that I was standing on, which led me to believe.
But there's other commanders with me. They're called the 24 elders or the 12 Aeon pairs.
Okay.
You know, I'm not the only commander.
Okay.
See, our consciousness as a humanity, Brian, whether we're awakened or unawakened, our consciousness is what runs this planet, that's called Earth, this ship.
Sure.
It doesn't. There's 7.8 billion fractals of a soul, or 900,000 sentient beings on this Earth ship. It appears that there's 7.8 billion. Now, regardless of how awakened or unawakened, how aware or unaware, we're all part of that collective conscious that steers this ship and keeps this ship either in a lower dimensional frequency or higher dimensional frequencies based on their consciousness and based on how much light or condensed light that the physical spacesuit named Brian, Nicole, Lisa, Linda hold.
So the 900,000, what did you call them? Sepians? Sentient beings. And how are those different from the other people that are part of the 7.8 billion?
Well, if you take a light and you take a black piece of construction paper, right, and you put a whole bunch of pinholes in that piece of paper, and you
I love light bright.
Oh, there you go. Light bright's perfect, Brian. And you hold it up to that light. What do you get?
That one light looks like 50 lights or whatever.
Yeah, you get a whole bunch of pinholes that have filter light through it, right? But it's still one light. So, liken that to a piece of black paper with 7.8 billion fractals of one light.
Okay, well, I think that's a good answer to Galactic Commander. I understood part of it. I can get my mind around a part of it. Should I salute you or?
No, I'm just you. You know.
Hey, wait, you're gonna blow my mind on that one.
Now, see, you take the four of us, okay? Now, again, remember that black piece of paper with all of those fragmented pinholes of light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're all one of those fractal pieces of that light that come from that one light, right? That one source. So we are just each other in a different timeline and a different dimensional frequency. Now, there's 144 dimensions, okay?
How many?
There's 144 dimensions.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
And each one of those dimensions has a grid, or a star grid, or a consciousness grid, whatever label you need to wrap your mind around. So there's a different, on each one of those grids, it's a Metatron's cube, right?
I'm gonna
Brian doesn't
Google
know what
that.
Metatron's
I'm
cube
gonna Google
is.
that while you're talking because I don't know what that cube looks like. But go on.
To the human aspect, that cube is a four-sided cube. Or to some esoterics, it's 9-sided cube.
Oh, okay,
Now,
I see it. Yeah, I can see it.
in all actuality, outside of linear time and space continuum, if you will, in what is called eternity. Eternity is all time and no time simultaneously. There's no past, there's no future, there's no present, there's only just right now. That's omnipresence. And in that space of omnipresence, you can see and access any one of 144 dimensions. Now, on the second dimension, we have the animal kingdoms. On the first dimension, we have the elementals, So as you go up in dimensions, in each one you have a cube. On each cube, you have 4 parallel universes simultaneously that you are living. Within each one of those 4 sides of the cube, or your 4 parallel universes, you have 7 timelines in each one of them. Now, in each one of those timelines, you have 7 paradigms. So now you see why there's 7.8 billion fractals of you on this Earthship?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow, this just turned into a good math class.
It did.
Sorry.
No,
Forgive me.
No, please don't apologize. It's very interesting. I'm trying to follow because I'm not exactly the greatest math person, so I'm trying to do the math in my head as you're saying it.
I'm looking at the Metatron cube. It's really interesting. I'll have to look into that more. The shape is really interesting, and we've seen part of that shape in other permutations. What did you call it, Lisa? The Star of Life?
Flower of Life.
Flower of Life.
Flower of Life. It's all tied in together. You can't get the full truth just from the Flower of Life. You can't get the full truth just from the galactic side of it, or the alien, which is really a derogatory vibrational word, because the higher in consciousness you embrace. And really, Brian, you'll relate to this, honey. You can liken, I don't care what anybody says, you can liken awakening or ascension to this on the human aspect logical term of it. We use 5% of our brain capacity. That's been proven that 95% of the human brain is unused. Yes?
Speak for yourself.
Or at least it's the subconscious.
I'm pushing 7.5%. Come on.
Oh, come on, honey. I was going to tell you you're at 13. Anyway, awakening and enlightenment truly is because all your vessel is condensed light. That's what people call darkness.
Okay.
It's condensed light. And in awakening, you bring in the light from the sun and everything else, the energies. You bring that light, which is information, into your vessel, your body. And what that does on your spiritual journeys or awakening journeys, whatever you want to label it, that expands your brain capacity from 5% out. And so awakening is the soul's journey. Ascension is strictly planetary. And those two words, those labels get really intermixed and confused. But really, your whole point of awakening is to expand your brain capacity to hold in the light information or the wisdom of 144 dimensions of frequencies.
Right. Well, it makes sense the way you describe it, because if you have a higher brain capacity, you can have a greater degree of clarity, or you can understand things better just because you have that brain power is going to give you more knowledge. So
Absolutely.
So you can have clarity and understand a difficult concept. And that's why it's hard for me or somebody that's not awakened to not understand some of these things.
But see, that's a judgment on your part, honey. Who says that you're not awakened, Brian?
Lisa.
I didn't
So, you know, that's something in her. That's a
I
judgment
didn't say
because,
that.
you know, and this is a distortion, and I mean no disrespect to nobody here. This is a distortion in the light worker community. When you come to understand that there is no duality, that it is contrast, that good and bad, positive, negative, wise and unwise, you know, conditional, unconditional, truth and untruth is all a mindset. It's all a thought. And, you know, what the light workers call the unawakened are those that are asleep. There's truth and untruth in that, yes. But however, with the shifts that we've been going through, guys, all these energies that have been bathed in this planet since, mind you, remember this Gaia, the planet Earth, ascended in 2012. She's already golden. It's humanity's consciousness that has not caught up to that golden heavenly realms frequency consciousness, or the new ship, which is called the New Jerusalem, or the Golden Roads, that us in our highest aspects are commanders of, the one that we live on. Now, the unawakened, if you think about it truly, they are more aware. Now hear my words, guys. Aware versus awake.
Sure.
They're more aware because they're dancing in the dark. And see, what light workers fail to keep in the forefront of their thought process is the higher you evolve in the light frequencies, the more into the abyss and the dark you go. Darkness births light.
Yeah.
However, light births darkness, and you get too far up in those light frequencies, you don't see light anymore. All you see is judgment and darkness and everything else because you're observing it all. So, you know, there's a lot of the unawakened that are more aware, even though they're not consciously aware that they're awakened. But they maneuver through the shadow aspects of what the light worker community, spiritual community labels shadows and darkness and inner vampires, all of that. These people that are labeled unawakened, they maneuver a hell of a lot easier. Oh, sorry, forgive me.
No, don't.
We're not governed by the FCC.
Okay. Because I cuss, I smoke, you know, whatever. That's all thought belief in the spiritual community too. That's not true. But anyway,
so sorry, what you're saying is, because I'm trying to like see if I can clarify this to make sure I'm following you correctly. So would this explain then why there are, why it seems like there are spiritually awakened people, to like, you know, and how it's said that are quote unquote kind of false light, like they're just seem to be coming more from like.
Let's take the word false out of it and let's call it distorted.
Okay.
Now, it's helpful to understand this. All this stuff that is false light workers, false prophets, every single one of us that have a human body are a false prophet at one point or another. Now, again, you know, contrast and love. Love is not an emotion. Love is. It's the dark and the light. It's the condensed light, which is called darkness, and light. It is matter and antimatter. It's only the human that judges. Creator don't judge us because Creator knows that darkness is part of contrast. It's only the human thought process that labels it, gives definition, gives description, gives an opinion, and gives judgment attached to anything. Creator sees darkness as just energy, condensed light. And that's what our journey is all about, is to get back to that point where you see darkness and light as contrast rather than duality. You don't attach the labels of polarity to it. You see it as an experience, as an energetic experience. So truth is as fluid as the frequency and you, the individual, hold within and maintain. So if somebody is at a third dimensional frequency and somebody's at a fourth dimensional frequency, mind you, the only place any kind of dark energy exists is in the 4D astral plane. It don't exist on the 3D tangible plane until a human individual gives a thought to it, that it's dark or evil or a sin, this, that, and the other. So you cannot say that anybody is a dark being or a false prophet or a false light worker, because they're just at a different frequency, and each frequency has its own understanding and clarity and truth that comes with it. So somebody that's maintaining, for the most part, I spend my time at the 33rd and the 42nd dimensional frequency. I only come into the physical aspect when I need to, if you will. And somebody else that's at the 12th dimensional frequency, there's always going to be deeper clarity and deeper truth to that clarity, that which you've already obtained at your frequency you're at, because you're always evolving. So it's just distorted. But to that person on that frequency, that's their truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can only understand and overstand at the frequency they're at.
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
That's like the different parallel timelines. Like, depending on what frequency you're at, you could jump. I mean,
right.
Your whole reality can change based on jumping those frequencies.
Right. So if you go into meditation, you connect with, the archangels or the ascended masters or Pleiadians, Lyrans, whomever, whatever, Council of 9, Council of 12, whomever you connect with, you can bring that wisdom, that light information in. However, and say you write it in a journal. Lisa, can I use you an example? Say Lisa had an experience and wrote it in a journal 2 years ago, right? Well, the frequency Lisa was at 2 years ago is not the frequency Lisa is at right now. So if Lisa was to go back and read that journal entry, it's going to now give her deeper clarity, deeper encodement. It's going to activate her even more because she's at a different frequency. And you can apply that in any way, even Brian. Now, Brian, 6 months ago, the frequency you were at 6 months ago is not the frequency you're at right now.
Sure.
So, you have a memory or an experience or something that, that you could have had very similar 6 months ago. Well, now you're going to see it through a different lens. You're going to get deeper clarity and deeper truth because you're seeing it through a different perceptual human lens because of the frequency you're maintaining at now.
That actually makes sense to me.
Yay!
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay, so that was sorry, I got you off track. Nicole.
Well, no, I mean, I just feel like
you wanted her to talk about her actual awakening.
Yeah, but
I think this was a great lead into that. But
yeah, because I think we just all went to Cosmic College for 20 minutes. So, Linda, do you want to share with us all and the audience how your spiritual awakening came to be?
For me, I was diagnosed with lung cancer back in 2012. And I went through chemo at the beginning of 2013 and family situations and whatnot. I ended up homeless the beginning of June. On June 18th, 2013, I was brutally raped. And in the rape, my tailbone was broken, the coccyx. And that sent me into full, what people coin and label as awakening. Now, for me, and Brian, this is why I giggle. For me, I was raped in Montana, and I went to a crisis home in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I spent from sunrise to sunset for 40 days out in the mountains. And my life, I was begging to die, straight up. I mean, I was begging to die, to be taken out of the cruelty of this world. Now, Brian, for you, up until this point, my whole life, the last sci-fi movie I ever watched was when I don't know, I was 7 or 8 when E.T. and the Cat from Outer Space came out in the movie theaters.
Okay.
And after that, I cried. I knew who E.T. was. I don't know how I knew it at that age, but, and I cried. I kept saying I wanted to go home. And from that point on, I never watched any sci-fi movies. Before my rape, you could not have convinced me that reincarnation was real. You could not have convinced me that UFOs in any way, shape, or form were real, that Martians were real, aliens, none of it. You just could not have convinced me, period. And I never watched The Matrix or any of that stuff. And when I was out in the mountains, the first angel that came to me, and mind you, I didn't believe in angels either. He came and sat as real as you and I are in the flesh in my front seat of my van. And I thought I was hallucinating. I'd been begging to die. I was just brutally raped. I was broken. I was beyond broken, guys. And to make a very long story shorter, Archangel Azrael, the angel of death, appeared in my van, and I argued with him, called him every name and filthy name in the book, if you will, back and forth for, like 10 hours. And then the next day, he appears with this Archangel Uriel. And I went through the same thing, going through periods of I'm hallucinating. Okay, no, now. And then I'd calm down. They taught me how to prana breathe. And then the third day.
Sorry, what kind of breathing?
Prana breathing.
Oh,
deep
prana.
breathing.
Okay.
Deep breathing. And then the third day, Jesus appeared in my van, and I knew I was hallucinating, and I wasn't even on drugs. I wasn't even smoking pot. And it changed my life, Literally, they sat with me for 40 days out in the mountains. And mind you, I had never heard of the words enlightenment, awakening, ascension. Jesus and the angels never used those words with me. And, Jesus showed me, because Brian, I'm like you, how can this be real? And I'm going to give you an example here. Jesus told me to, even though I never seen my rapist's face, obviously it was a male. So Jesus told me to take the rapist, the image I had of this monster that did this to me, take his face off and put my face on his body.
Interesting.
And ask myself why I raped myself. And I tell you what, that image of Jesus sitting in my van got called every name in the book. What the flip do you mean I raped myself? And that was the beginning, literally, of my journey. I mean, at that point, after my tailbone was broken, I'm remembering 3.8 billion lifetimes, and I didn't know what I was remembering.
Whoa.
I'm going to see a rape psychiatrist because it's part of this rape crisis home that I'm staying in. And this psychiatrist, I'm blowing her mind. She's like, you're doing my job for me. You're figuring this stuff out. And the more that Jesus and the angels showed me to detach my emotions, to make it impersonal. They showed me how each one of us was here for a divine purpose, that the Bible had truth and untruth, and I mean, all of it. And I still had a lot of problems with the galactic side of the thing. I mean, Jesus is supposed to be religious, right?
Well, the church paints that picture.
Right, but mind you, I'm still in that broken space of getting all this information, and it doesn't make sense because that's not what life is showing us, right? So I'm getting it from both sides, and literally from that point on up till now, it's just been a matter of getting deeper clarity to what I was showing. I mean, I have so many journals, and I was making posts 4 and 5 years ago, which is occurring right now. And people would tell me, Linda, you don't know what you're talking about. You're too far ahead. You're too far from the future. You got to come down to earth. And I didn't know what had happened at that point. You know, I was still figuring it out, that Jesus and the angels were still, because I had all this information, I had all this wisdom, and I didn't understand what it meant. But at the same time, I'm having memories of Pompeii being buried in Italy under the lava. I'm having memories of being a white little girl being hung and raped and beaten by 10 black men back in Egypt. I'm having these memories of these green people coming at me, and I'm shooting at them. I'm having these, So for me, it was.
Does that still? Do you still go through those, or see those visions, or whatever you call it? I mean, did that happen at that time of the awakening? Because that was now 4 or 5 years ago. Are you still seeing those things and experiencing things?
I get visions. I don't have to go into meditation to see anything. I do meditate, but I mean, I can literally pull up at this point in my journey any timeline, any dimension I want to, and I can see and I can choose which timeline I want to participate in any given moment. But I see everything as codes, energy, sounds, tones. I understand that the perception of the vessel, Linda, is inverted. Now, our consciousness in the human vessel, everything should automatically tell you that everything is distorted. Because anything that you see physically with your eyes goes in through your optic nerve, and what happens? Automatically, it's inverted. Therefore, the truth is now inverted for you in any way, shape, or form because of your perception. The optic nerve is automatically, in order for your brain to process it, has automatically inverted it. So you want the truth of anything, look at the inversion. Now, the consciousness of the 3D collective consciousness that we have been enslaved under, subliminally programmed, and what the awakening journey is you're evolving your consciousness, your frequency of that consciousness into a 5D dimensional harmonic bandwidth frequency, to where your physical, tangible world will vibrate at that frequency within your consciousness, within your physical vessel. And as that takes place, that's where you're connecting, if you will, to a new grid of consciousness. And so that's where the skeptical part, Brian, comes in, because spirit is unseen. Spirit is the wisdom that you're expanding your mind, your brain through.
Oh, I like thinking of it that way.
And so as you raise your frequency, and the collective, even if you consider yourself unawakened, and Lisa and Nicole and the rest of us continue to do the inner work in understand that we're conduits of karmic energy and make our experiences impersonal. We change that energetic template, which automatically connects the conscious mind of the vessel to the new star grid consciousness, or the New Jerusalem, the Golden Roads, whatever you want to call it, the ship. So the higher in frequency we as an individual and as a collective go, we're connecting more and more to the full wisdom and knowledge of the living library, which is known as the planet Earth. It's a ship. Your brain is the living library. You're just now expanding it to connect fully to your full consciousness.
So do you know how many people have awakened? You know, out of the 900,000 sentient beings or the 7.8 million meat sacks?
Well, there's 3.491 million light workers that are at a frequency of awareness as a mass collective. Now, out of that 3.491 million, a third of them are in the process of spiraling right now. Why are they spiraling? Because they got caught up with, rather than listening to their spirit, they got caught up with following all of these gurus and everything outside of them that told them they didn't have to deal with their shadow side. Just go keep your vibes positive, have astral sex, keep your frequency high, and not deal with your shadow side.
Yeah.
So now we're finding we got a third of those 3.491 million that are spiraling back down to a lower timeline frequency, because lo and behold, they're being bombarded with all this so-called darkness or shadows of themselves, and they hadn't done the inner work. And so the vessel in and of itself cannot handle the higher frequencies coming in now. So that's what I mean when I say spiral or short circuit, if you will. That's why it's been, everybody wants the event to happen all at once. Well, the physical vessel cannot handle that bolt of light.
Can you
Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, can you explain the event to Brian? Because I think you've only recently heard what the event is, right, Brian?
We've had a couple of people talk about it. I guess I wouldn't say I know what it is.
The event is what is referred to in any of the religious texts as "Let there be light." Now that's already occurred. That bolt of light, in the Bible and whatnot, it sits there and says, and the earth is going to just light up, and then we're going to go through 200 years of darkness, da 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 da. That bolt of light has already hit the earth. That's when Gaia ascended, back in 2012. Now,
so does that mean we have to go through 200 years of darkness?
No. See, that's a belief. Nothing's real until there's no thought that is real. All a belief is a thought that's been repeated. Nothing is real until you attach a thought to it. So you take away the thought, then it's not real. It doesn't exist. And that's the consciousness that we're leaving. The unconscious thought process, where you're not aware that your thoughts are creating. You're attaching fear to thoughts, and they're going to create. That's what the frequency shift does. What the event is it's not just a one-time thing. It's called a stairway to heaven for a purpose, not, rather than a highway to hell. And so humanity has had to slowly raise their frequency of their vessel, because if they were to get this whole bolt of light information, it would short circuit the vessel. It would annihilate our entire DNA. So we've come back from the future, every single one of us, to recreate where we annihilated ourselves. We're time travelers, every single one of us, whether we remember it or not. But at the same token, we're the ancient elders. Because remember, outside of time and space continuum, which is linear time on this 3D template, physical plane. Outside of that time and space continuum, everything is right now. It's only the human mind and its beliefs that says there is a past and there is a present and there is a future. But your brain, even the 95% that is deemed to be unused, holds memories of living life there. 87%, yeah. Okay. So it's holding memories. So say you're having a deja vu moment. Okay, that is a memory that you have tapped into that frequency. It has sparked that frequency to where now you have a memory. You can literally pull that memory into you because now you have engaged it, because now you have a deja vu moment. You have a dream, or in your meditation, you know, meditation takes you to different dimensions, which activate different memories in your brain. And this is, it ties into the false prophet and the false light workers and yada, 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 because say you're at a lower frequency, and in meditation, you're tapping into and tuning into a higher frequency. You're getting that wisdom, and now you're having to bring it in and filter it through a lower frequency filter. So you're not getting the full clarity and the full truth, the full decodement of it, because the frequency your vessel is at can only filter it through its own veils. And the higher in frequency you evolve to, you erase those veils. You've expanded your own limitations within your mind. You've allowed yourself to pierce it and to be open-minded to where you can receive more light information, which is wisdom. From
so
the
is there a threshold for, you said there was 3.5 billion, I think?
Million light workers.
Oh, there is there a threshold for the number of people that have awakened and can understand things, that's when this event is going to happen?
I heard it was 144,000.
Well, the 144,000, again, you know, people apply that to actual beings. And it's really helpful to understand that everything comes down to numbers, energy, frequency, and vibration. So if there's 3.5 million awakened and aware light workers in one aspect of frequency or another, right? And we're moving from a 2-strand DNA for the majority to a 12-strand DNA, which actually is a 24-strand DNA, which in all truth, the more you evolve, comes to a 48-strand DNA. So the 144,000 hold in original blueprint template DNA. In other words, they hold the actual wholeness of that DNA. Now, 3.5 million light workers are fragments of that DNA. So we're crystallining 144,000 strands of DNA codons. Now, this is the family tree of life. Take it back to that piece of paper with all those pinholes in it. You know, in order to be conduits and clear all the karma of this planet, in order to have the human collective consciousness of us be in full union and harmony with our above and the below, if you will, right?
I'd like to say right, but I'm lost.
He's glazed over.
I think Nicole and Lisa are understanding you.
You want me to continue?
Yo, absolutely. I'm just, when you said right, I'm like, yeah.
Can we just pause for a second? I have to pee so bad, my bladder. I drank so much water before we started the show.
Sure.
While we're paused, I'll tell you
Go,
why
Nicole.
go, Nicole. While she's going, I'll tell you, Linda, why she's drinking a lot of water. We talked about it on a recent episode, I guess, but Lisa and Nicole and I, we each drink a gallon of distilled water a day.
Oh, right on.
And actually, Lisa and I, we bought our own distiller. So out in the garage, there's a distiller that makes up to 8 gallons a day, and it's got a reservoir tank and a pump. So even our ice cubes, and you go up to the refrigerator, door to get water, and that's distilled water. So
that is sweet. Distilled water is the best water you can do for your vessel. You can also speak to it. Say out loud, I love you. Sing to it, whatever you want to do. But the more you say I love you, water in and of itself is a consciousness. And then when you drink it, and of course you urinate or defecate out, regardless, it flows out into the rivers, oceans, lakes, seas, yada, yada, yada. And all the water, it affects that sound vibration of I love you, and that frequency is carried as like a music throughout all the water, and it will eventually touch every human life, every tree, plant, animal, that vibration of I love you.
that is awesome.
So you should, tell people that you love them all the time. Just people, I love you, I love you, I love you, right?
Well, I do it silently. When they call me,
Energetically.
Tell me I'm a false prophet and all that, I love you, I bless you, yada, yada, yada. And when I'm driving down the highway, I say out loud, I love you guys.
I think that's a great idea to do that with the water. It's what a romantic view of humanity, that we're putting positive energy into this thing that we're consuming, which is great for our body. But I think a lot of us, we don't think about when it leaves our body and what happens. And I went to the bathroom and flushed the toilet, and there goes the water. But for it to still have goodness attached to it, I think that's
same with your food, because you consume your food. And if you bless your food, and if you tell your food, I love you, even your bath water, your shower, I bless all my water, whether I'm doing dishes, cooking, taking a shower, bath, flushing the toilet, don't matter. I bless it all with the Holy Divine Truth Code number 33106. And then I turn around and it's become a habit for me. I just do it unconsciously now. It's just automatic. I sit there and say, may it purify the mind, body, heart, souls, and spirits of all life forms.
Well, I love anytime I go to the bathroom, I'm blessing somebody's house.
People don't realize that their poops, for being blunt, but
that gives a whole new meaning to the term holy shit.
Exactly. And truly, it really is.
Oh my goodness.
So is your urine. And here's another thing. A woman's menstrual blood is the most holiest thing there is. If you take, and I know it sounds disgusting, but that's too is a belief, because it's what we've been taught. We've been taught that our periods, thank God I don't have it no more, but we've been taught that it's nasty and it's messy and it's this, that, and the other. And truly, if you were to take your menstrual blood and put it in a cup and take it and feed your garden and your plants and around your trees with it, you will never hunger. You will have abundance in ways that you cannot even imagine. To make love to a woman when she's on her cycle is holy in every sense of the word act.
Amen.
Our vessels, that saying, the church, how they call churches temples. No, your vessel's your temple. You worship your vessel. You rub your tired feet and say, I love you out loud. And the reason I say out loud, we can do it within too silently. Because obviously you're not going to walk up to what the human says is a whole bunch of strangers and say, I love you. People are going to say, what the fuck's your problem? Oops, sorry. Forgive my language.
It's okay.
Bring it on.
and so you can say that silently, but, in your own space, your own whatever, say it out loud, because then your conscious mind is hearing it at the same time your subconscious mind is hearing it. And that balance.
Sorry to interrupt. What you had mentioned, 33106 was the Holy Truth Divine Code?
Of the Holy Eternal Mother. It's a truth code, 33106. And
what is a truth code?
Is there a keypad somewhere?
Everything comes down in your DNA, Lisa. It is your DNA, your mind. Remember, your brain is an operating system. Your vessel is a spacesuit. Your consciousness is coming back into controlling your body and rather than your mind, your thought process. And so your mind, your brain rather, not your mind, your brain operates on codes, sounds, colors, tones. It's an operating system. And so when I say a truth code number, that's a code that activates in your DNA. It activates your original blueprint of the one consciousness of source that we all come from.
How can we use it? This code.
Say it out loud, draw it, write it. On my water bottles, or on my water cup, actually, because I don't use plastic bottles if I don't have to. I have it written in permanent black marker, 33106 and 33196. That's the Divine Father's truth code number. Where did I get these numbers? What people call your higher self, which I just call myself. That's who I am. Gave it to me. I don't, I'm one of these that in the mountains, those 40 days, I was told to stop listening to the radio, watching movies, reading books, not doing research, nothing. I was told to stop it all, and I've really held on to that. And Jesus and the angels told me that way the wisdom that was coming into me would not be tainted. And the only way to trust thyself is to learn to remember thyself. And if I was to follow all these other people and everything else, it would cause confusion in me. And I have found that to be very accurate.
Okay, so the father code is
33196.
33196. I think I want to get those tattooed on my body.
I say this, and I emphasize this. Take my word for nothing. Validate anything, and I mean anything I or anybody else says. Because everybody, again, is at their own level of frequency. I understand that there's no such thing as energy vampires and dark cabal and da-da-da-da-da. I understand that's us. That we are the Illuminati, the darkness, the evil. We are that. But there's somebody that's on a level of frequency that's being attacked by what it seems to be a dark entity or evil being or energy vampire. I'm being attacked. Oh, God, save me, help me, send me energy. for them, it's very real because they're on that frequency that they have to neutralize in that timelines, that those memories, because that's all a timeline is a memory. They have to 0 point those memories because that was of the experience of, remember, the 3D is only an experience. It's not
Thank
who
God.
we are. Right? Right? That's just like people say to me, how can you sit there? And mind you, I look at my rape as a miracle. I have no sexual hang-ups or anything from my rape. None of it. To me, it was a miracle. And people can understand that, but it is what it is. Pedophilia, rape, murder, all of that stuff, again, is a frequency. And people say, how can you sit there and say that it's not existing when it's happening all around us? It's being exposed in our government, yada, yada, yada. Well, if everything outside of time and space continuum, remember, this is linear time. So anything that's happening is called the present right now. When you step outside and make it impersonal, make the physical, tangible outside world you perceive impersonal, and maintain the frequency of your consciousness within, and anchor that into your physical, tangible plane of existence, reality, you will find the higher in frequency you vibrate at, you will find that you come into being an observer rather than a participant of that. Yes, you observe that lower distorted frequency, evilness, condensed light, whatever label you need to give it, exists, but you're the observer now. Now you're the transformer. Now you don't have to engage and give an opinion or judgment about pedophilia, murder, or rape as good, bad, horrible, terrorizing, haunting, whatever label you need to give it. Emotional label. When you become the observer, you see it as, yeah, I see it, I observe it, I don't care for it, I accept it, but now I'm going to change that because no longer do I want that energetic experience in my reality. And that's because we're conduits. So we go through all of these experiences. Why would we do this to ourselves? Because we're the first and we're the last. We're the future and we're the past. Remember that piece of black paper with all those fragmented lights and holes? That's why I said, I'm just Brian. I'm just from a different timeline on a different frequency, dimensional frequency, just like Lisa is. Brian, you're me, and you're Lisa, and you're Nicole, and you're Matthew, and Michael, and Mark, and John, and Luke, and, they're just different energetic templates within our living library. This is why you see so many people sit there. Well, I'm Mary Magdalene. Well, I'm Mother Mary. Well, I'm Archangel Michael. Well, I'm Yeshua. Well, I'm Sananda. Well, I'm Lady Nada. Well, I'm Anthena. Because we are all things. It's in our living library. But the whole point is that all those experiences and eras and timelines, Lemuria, Atlantis, Egypt, this, that, and the other. We're here to bring all those memories, the wisdom and the knowledge we gained from those lifetimes, and then 0 point all those titles, all those gods and goddesses, all those ladies and lords, all those kings and kings, princesses, kings and queens, and princesses and princes. We're to bring all of those fragmented aspects of ourselves, all that wisdom of those lifetimes, of those frequencies, of those deities, if you will, back into ourselves, to where no longer do we have a whole lot of gods and goddesses. We're back to the wholeness of Source within our consciousness, individually and collectively.
I'm like, my mind is definitely being stretched right now. I love it because,
and again, validate within. Just don't take my word for it.
No, I'm not saying I am. It's just you're giving us just so much to think about, and
it's only our human mind that limits it by thought.
So you were saying, before we paused about, because Brian, you said you weren't following the whole DNA codes being activated into 48 strands, and then there was the 144,000. Did you say codons?
No, there's more. There's more than 144,000 codons. There's 144,000 dimensions.
Okay.
And each one has a whole bunch of frequencies and codes within themselves that activate codons that activate within the DNA.
Can I ask a question? When you were talking about keeping it impersonal, I think I understand what you mean by that. You're not getting emotional over whatever it is that's happening in your life as you perceive it to be happening maybe to you. And I think that's part of what I would call the awakening, is when you start understanding that there's nothing outside of you. And just as you explain, we're all one. It's the law of oneness. I mean, all this stuff just really fits together that, we are all.
Change the word oneness to interconnectedness.
Yeah.
People misunderstand oneness. It's really easy to sit there and say we're all one. But to fully grasp it, we're interconnected. In other words, what you're thinking, you can rest assured the collective's thinking it too, somewhere, some way, somehow, someone. What you're going through, that misery, that pain, that joy, that bliss, you're putting that into the collective with every thought. And when I say make it impersonal, exactly what you were saying, beautiful, is nobody's doing anything to you because we're conduits. Yes, we're experiencing it because that's the only way we can overwrite the programming that humanity has subliminally been programmed under through the mind, is by actually experiencing the more collectively consciousness beliefs and thought patterns that have been so ingrained into the mind. So we go through those experiences. Now, just like with the rapist, make it impersonal, put my face on his, then I no longer see the character. I no longer see the storyline. All I'm seeing is myself. So, okay, if all of this is myself, what do I need to see in order to 0 point this, because I'm a conduit? So when you take away the labels of Brian, of Linda, Nicole, Lisa, Matthew, Michael, you take away the labels mother, father, uncle, aunt, you take away the descriptions, molestation, abuse, addiction, unworthiness, distrust. You take away the character and the personality and identifications of the story. Then and only then can you see the foundation that story was created on.
Yeah.
And only when you can see that energetic foundation can you neutralize it and 0 point it to where you no longer have the memories. You just hold the wisdom and the knowledge of the experience.
That makes complete sense to me. I experienced that, I want to say like maybe in my early 30s when like one of my past boyfriends had cheated on me, and it took me almost 7 years to get to this point where I was able to, as you call it, 0 point the energy, where I was able to remove all of the emotions that I had put on it, projected onto the experience, and just see it for what it was, become the observer and just become the witness, and see that all he had done was just be my mirror. And so I did kind of what you did, in a sense of like putting your face on the rapist. And it helped so much to see that he was showing me how little I thought of myself, and that I was, that he was just showing me how I thought of myself through him, through that entire act. And when I realized that he was just showing me what I really thought of myself, it all of a sudden became, like you said, a huge blessing. And I no longer carried the pain of the experience. And I remember feeling such, it was almost like I felt an incredible energy surge off my heart chakra that just lifted, and I felt like this weight had been gone and removed. And it just completely shifted everything. And that's what was the catalyst for me really starting to do a lot more deeper work on understanding my value and self-worth, and how to start building that up within me, so that that he was just showing me a lot of the work that I needed to do within.
Yes. Now take it. Now, how deeper did you take that? And why I asked that is because, one, it's tied into every single male within your whole lifetime, this lifetime right now. Every single male, whether it was a brother, an uncle, a father, a stepfather, a lover, a partner, a best friend, a coworker, don't matter. Anybody that's ever been in your experience holds that. Now, cheating, this is where I say make it impersonal, because it's never what the physical presents itself. Cheating to the human aspect, like your experience, your boyfriend cheated on you. And now cheating to the human directly is tied into relationships and sex. But cheating, really, the energetic signature behavioral template of cheating has nothing to do with sex, nor cheating on your spouse as you would think it would be. Cheating, that template, the core inception points that led up to being betrayed, lied to, cheated on, stole from, because that's all part of cheating. That betrayal, that distrust, comes from the energetic inception point of when you veiled yourself, when you incarnated, you veiled yourself from the Creator. Therefore, it automatically formed the second you incarnated into a baby's vessel, the vessel known as Lisa, Nicole, Brian, Linda. You veiled yourself from all that you have ever been. In other words, you have now had a walk-in experience. And because a programming had walked into your vessel, had masked you and veiled you from all that you are. Now, every experience from the second we took our first breath has a core foundation of distrust, unworthiness, and abandonment and rejection, which directly ties into cheating. Now, cheating, how it was put on that core foundation, inceptional foundation, if you will, how cheating comes into it is, if you trace it back, you were cheated out of forming an emotional bond of love with one or more parental figures in your lifetime from up until the ages of 7 to 8 years old.
Can you say that again? That just the very last part.
Cheating is directly tied into being cheated out of forming an emotional bond of love with one or more parental figures in your early childhood from the moment you were born up until the ages of 7 or 8.
Interesting.
And if you observe that after the phone call, any of you, because there's not one of us that in one way or another has not experienced cheating, betrayal, abuse, being lied to in one way or another. And every single one of our experiences, friendships, partnerships, relationships, everything is a ship, guys. A portal, a ship. Every single one of them have been built on an inceptional foundation. And all of it stems back to our parents. Our parental figures, whether we were raised in a foster family, whether we were raised by our parents, step-parents. Not only that, every relationship, again, in any way, shape, or form, friendship, familyship, workship, whatever it may be, has always been tied into a third party relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you say like to take it further and to really look at every male relationship, whether it's brother, uncle, cousin, whatever, I think about that experience when I think back to it and how much it shifted everything for me. Is that was a huge turning point for me because I had always sought male approval, because I always sought my father's approval more so than my mother's. And I've always felt abandoned because my father was a workaholic, and he had to be to raise the family, to feed all of us. And so I was always fighting for his time, fighting for his attention, fighting for his approval, always seeking it. And that was always outside of me. And I think I compensated it because I was so masculine in my energy growing up until this point, that is when I finally started to work with balancing the male energies and honoring the feminine energies and bringing more balance into it, so that I was never seeking outside of me. Like, that was the process of starting to build everything within, as opposed to having it all outside.
Absolutely. And you know why?
Well, because
everything you just described, every single one of us have gone through as far as the feminine. Because our higher self, Linda Nicole, any female, is the masculine aspect. We have to, in order to bring in our higher self. Now, Brian's, every masculine, his higher self is the feminine. So their ascension and awakening is going to be different than ours, because we have to bring in, it's the masculine that is distorted for us. Our higher masculine is pure. But every single one of our experiences with the masculine in our human experiences has not been pure. So we have, those are the memories and everything we're purifying.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the masculine's higher self. Now remember, Christ and Magdalene are not names. Jesus, Yeshua, Mary, Mother Mary Magdalene, that wasn't their birth names. Christ, it's Christ consciousness. It's Magdalene consciousness. Those are consciousnesses. Those are the whole of Source, those two together. So the masculine incarnates, Brian, Michael, everybody, their higher self that they're having to get in tune with is the feminine, because the feminine has abandoned them, emasculated them, rejected them, crucified them, time and time and time again, just like the masculine has done to the feminine, because our higher self is masculine.
But we have many lifetimes where we may have been male or woman, male or female, in those other lifetimes, right?
So how does that relate to your higher consciousness? Does that change?
Because normally every other lifetime that we incarnate, in order to keep our soul balanced, and this is the distortion of twin flames, yada, yada, yada. In order to keep our soul balanced, the alpha and the omega of the one source that we come from, if you will. Normally, every other lifetime, one is a feminine incarnation, with the masculine being the above, the unseen, the unheard, the unconscious. And the next lifetime, it's inverted again. Then where the masculine and the feminine is the higher self. What's different in this ascension cycle is we are bringing the higher aspects of our feminine and masculine essences from all those incarnations that hold that wisdom and knowledge. We're bringing that into our consciousness, the right and left brain, if you will. And
does the higher self shift when we shift on, when we incarnate in one lifetime it's male and another lifetime it's female, the higher self shifts as well?
Yes, and the reason why the higher self shifts is because when we die the physical death, lay down this vessel, we automatically go through the life review, yada, 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 and we merge back in with our higher aspect. That's, you know, that's where they say all the twin flames stuff. Really, all it is the full merging of the ethereal higher self with the physical vessel. Normally, that has never been able to be done until after we die a physical death, when the soul leaves the body. That's when the two merge together and then they ascend as a whole. What this ascension process is doing is, and this is the crystallining of the DNA aspect of it. This is where the Metatron's cube and the flower of life comes in to play, because they're all coded. They're codes for your DNA, your consciousness of your original blueprint. This ascension, we're crystallining that to where never again will Michael's higher self aspect, the feminine, be outside of him or unseen, where Linda, Nicole, and Lisa's higher masculine aspect is unseen or above, if you will. We're bringing it into the vessel by raising our frequency through the forgiveness of what Lisa just described. Through that forgiveness, she set herself free. When she did that, when she said her heart expanded, her heart chakra expanded, that shifted her right then and there to a higher frequency, which now gave her opportunity to have more light come into her vessel. The more you heal and release of these experiences, these memories, like Lisa did with the cheating boyfriend, and you neutralize those energetic signature behaviors, those memories, if you will. That is what is known as darkness, the shadow side, the condensed light. That's what you're releasing. The more light you take in, the lighter your vessel becomes. Eventually, your flesh, if you pay attention, if you look in the mirror, you can see your veins. Your skin appears thinner now, because the more you heal and release that carbon-based density, you're holding more light in, which means you're anchoring it into the Metatron's cube, if you will, the grid, whatever people want to label it. But you're anchoring that in to your physical vessel's consciousness. Therefore, the physical outside plane of existence that you perceive has to change to match your new frequency you evolved to. Now, Lisa, with your experience after you healed that, you said your whole reality changed.
That was me, Nicole.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole. You guys sound the same to me.
Yeah, but we're all one.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
We're all interconnected, absolutely. And it's a proven fact. The 5 people that you spend the most time around, you become like them.
Oh gosh, Brian, we got to stop hanging out.
Because we're so interconnected, and you vibrate at. That's why, you know, again, the distortion in the spiritual groups and communities about people being dark or false or this, that, and the other. The higher in frequency you evolve to, the more people like that fall away from you. Those timelines, those experiences, those energies. And when you 0 point something, Nicole, like you did with a cheating boyfriend, when you 0 point that, no longer do you have that energy come into your experience. So when you 0 point the cheating aspect, your next relationships now, you're not going to have to worry about, unless, of course, you didn't 0 point it. Then it's going to keep coming back until you recognize it and 0 point it. But when you 0 point it, just like with rape or pedophilia or betrayal or whatever, you don't have those karmic energies coming back to you, because you're no longer putting that energy out because you've 0 pointed it. You've brought it from the unconscious to your conscious awareness, to where you could recognize it that he was showing you yourself what you needed, the narcissism, the codependency, the emotional manipulation, all of that stuff that you had to heal within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you come to higher frequency you go, and why so many of us say that the separation of the worlds. Right now, those that are choosing to ascend with the planet, awaken into full consciousness, if you will. The separation of the worlds is we're going more into a 5D harmonic frequency, collective consciousness of unity, peace, unconditional, selfless love, service to others, harmony, that kind of harmonic frequency existence in our physical, tangible reality. Now, those that are unawakened, still sleeping, still in the lower frequency timeline, distorted frequencies of fear, they're separating from our collective consciousness. That's why the higher in frequency you rise to, there's not 7.8 billion fragmented aspects of ourselves on our existence plane, because not everybody is ascending with us. So, we're going to go down to like 900,000 on the new Earth ship known as the New Jerusalem, or the 5D collective consciousness star grid.
Now, I know you said that the event already happened, that it was in 2012, but a lot of people are talking about it now as something that is an additional thing is going to happen, I guess.
Well, they still expect the event to be one thing.
An energy burster.
Yeah, and it's happening. It just happened on 5/5. We just went through a massive collective quantum leap in mass frequency, because the individually humanity, those on the awakening journey, has reached individually. They reached a certain frequency, which was like the 100 monkey syndrome, which let us do a quantum leap in the collective consciousness. That just occurred on the 5/5 gateway. That particular gateway portal, activated the codes 5511 or 66 or 12, however you want to look at it, or 3, which is a Christ Magdalene consciousness. So with that comes now what people like Greg Prescott on N5D and them guys say have written about, like 3 huge tidal waves. Or I'm sure you've heard it as energy waves coming in. That's let there be light. So for those out there that are expecting an event, a singular event, well, it's just not going to happen, because it's a stairway to heaven. Our physical vessels cannot hold that much light information. So we have to gradually awaken to that information. And so we got another huge light wave, if you will, event shift, if you will, on the 15th at the new moon. Now that one is significant. This Thursday, Friday, the masculine essence within and without. Uranus, the planetary alignments, Uranus is moving into Taurus. Uranus is all about sudden change.
Oh.
That's the energy coming in. Taurus is the bull. It's all about harmony. It's all about liberation. It's all about freedom. And Taurus and Uranus energies are very compatible. So
yes, I've read about this because I'm a Taurus, and I've read that in my horoscope, the new moon, the 15th, is a very pivotal transition time for me, because I think it's Uranus moves into my first house. Yeah.
It's Taurus is your sun. So you're going to get like a triple whammy, if you will, because collectively and on this planet, Uranus moving into Taurus is putting us in a whole new 7-year cycle, a new beginning. And Uranus is all about sudden change. Now you're going to see another third of these 3.5 million light workers are going to spiral. We already have 1/3 of them spiraling. Now you're going to have another third of them spiraling. Why do I say that? Because now we've come into the awakening and the awareness of these awakening. With awakening comes divine responsibility. And now this is where you're going to see a third of them spiral, because the human aspect is going to step up and claim that it's their divine responsibility to feed the dark. Only they're not realizing consciously they're feeding the dark. And some of them are, but this is where another third is going to spiral again. And
when you say spiral, you say they have to face their shadow selves or demons,
right.
That's just, you're just talking about inner work as far as you
right. When I say spiral, yes, because with every infusion of light we get, or wave, or quantum leap we take collectively, as well as individually. But remember now, Uranus and Taurus, that's planetary. That's ascension. That's not an individual awakening. That's a collective ascension that it's affecting. You happen to have your sun in Taurus, so it's going to affect you even more individually. Because remember, individually, we are the collective as well. So this is a huge, tangible, physical presentation of an energy shift that's going to alter our physical realities. This is where you're going to see a lot more sudden deaths. People having heart attacks, dying in their sleep. This is where you're going to see a lot more chaos and turbulence erupt, because we've got another huge light infusion of let there be light. This is where you're going to see out of the blue, people are either getting married to what is coined a complete stranger they met a week ago, or you're going to see people that you thought were in the most happiest, stablest marriages fall apart. This is where people are going to lose out of the blue their jobs, their homes, and they're going to be relocated, because this is where Spirit is saying, look, we've given you a 5-year grace period. You haven't listened to anything that we've tried to show you. You've resisted change in every way, shape, or form because you didn't have fear. You didn't have the money, this, that, or the other. Now we're forcing change upon you. That's what Uranus and Taurus is all about.
It sounds...
And that's what...
one perspective, it can kind of sound ominous, but then it just depends on what side of the coin you're looking at, I guess. But
your higher aspect looks at both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you see outside of your own perception. See, when you tap into your God consciousness, Christ consciousness, Omega consciousness, whatever you want to call it, when you tap into that, again, you see contrast. You see both sides of the pendulum, the scales of justice, if you will. You see both inversions. Your journey has been to turn the hourglass into a diamond, to flip up those two and make it a diamond, to bring those two platforms together that are separated by the hourglass, to flatten the hourglass. That's what your shift in consciousness is doing with every energy wave, every event shift.
Mm-hmm.
We just had an event shift 5-5. We're having another event shift 5-15. We're having another one 6-1. The first day of every month of this year is a shift in consciousness. And that's not counting all the planetary alignments. That's not counting the equinoxes, the eclipses, on top of it all.
I feel like a yo-yo energetically.
Ride the roller coaster of freedom.
It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, gosh.
Things just come out of the blue.
I know. Linda, thanks so much for being on the show. You've given us so much to think about. Like, I'm going to have to listen to this episode a couple times again just to process it all, because there's just so much information here. But it's great. We appreciate you coming on, and love to have you back on the show again sometime in the future. Or
come to the cruise. Come on the cruise.
What cruise?
Oh, so we're going on it's called the Waves of Light, a conscious conference at sea. And it's in January out of Tampa, the 17th to the 21st. So we're having a conference on this cruise.
Oh, you should send me the information.
I will. I'll send it to you after the show. And to all of our audience, if you want any more information or you want to get a ticket, May 13th is the final day that you're able to lock in at the price that we've got. After the 13th, the price will likely go up. We can't guarantee that price any longer. So you would want to lock in that ticket with just a deposit, and then you get a payment plan of about 5 different 5 months, I believe it is. And so wavesoflight.org is where you can go to get more information on that. And if you have questions, you can also email us at info@enlightenup.us. Linda, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been an absolute pleasure and a wealth of knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I have to say, Brian, I was really impressed with your questions and how you were following along.
Whatever.
Oh, Brian, I just adore you.
Thank you. So there's one.
There's one person that adores
there's
him.
One.
He found one.
Well, if there's one, there's all, right?
Hey, that's a great way to look at it.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being on the show, and tune in until next week. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.